And Chris Wecht is not very enthusiastic about Christian Watson in our rankings over at Fantasy Points. And Chris has been fantastic all year long. Graham's apprehensive about Christian Watson. Chris is apprehensive about Christian Watson. I'm not, though. This is my vibes-based take. Vibes-based prediction here, Graham. 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown for Christian Watson. Christian Watson is going to put up a number this week against Carolina. Christian Watson to the moon this week and absolutely smokes it.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Week 9 fantasy football start sit decisions. Which players should be on our benches? Which players should be in our flex spots? Theo Greminger and Graham Barfield every single week for Fantasy Football Daily on the Fantasy Points Podcast Network. Graham, let's start it out. A guy that people are sort of hating on this year. Kyler Murray scoring as a QB2 this season, a low-end QB2 in terms of points per game. Jacoby Brissett came in and played well, elevated Trey McBride. Now Kyler Murray is going to make his return. Great matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. What is our trust level for Kyler Murray? Is this a game to sort of get him started over the second half of the year?
So on a normal week, my trust level for Kyler is like 1 out of 10, literally. I mean, the dude just hasn't gotten better since his rookie season. He's just like completely stagnated. I also think, Drew Petzig, their offensive coordinator, really hasn't called a great passing game for him for the last couple of years. The run game has been great, but this week it's like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It's just this Cowboys defense is so bad, man. Like I'm pretty sure like you and I could go out there and complete a couple passes against these Cowboys defenders. Yeah, dude,
Dallas is soft. Dallas is really soft. It seems like it's a chance for Kyler Murray to sort of get it going. I think there's like even like I know certainly from fantasy managers, there's a lot of people who are like, save my Trey McBride shares, keep Jacoby Brissett in there. Jacoby Brissett has as many touchdown passes to Trey McBride as Kyler Murray does. Really, really low-level stuff. Murray's got to get it going in terms of passing touchdowns. I think that this is one where he's got only 6 passing touchdowns on the year. If he can simply get that number up and start that against Dallas, I think sort of a turnaround is there. We haven't never seen him average this few points per game, 16.2 points per game. We have never seen him average fewer than like 18 points per game. Usually he's a good bet to finish as a QB1. Every single season in his career, Graham, he's finished as a QB1 in points per game. This would be like sort of the worst season ever if he can't turn that one around. So very interested in that one. And Trey McBride is on everyone's mind, but you want to talk about another Arizona pass catcher.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison, man, he's just been like dragged down by this passing offense. He's also just kind of struggled this season. I think one of the things that we loved from Marv coming out was his hands, and that's like actually been one of his deficits this year. He's dropped some passes that he shouldn't drop. But yeah, bro, I mean, it's just this matchup. I mean, you've got to play Marv this week. I've been listing him as like a flex, and I've put him in the sit list in my article a few times this year. But this week, he's like really strong wide receiver too. Jaguars are giving up the most fantasy points to outside wide receivers, but Dallas is second most this season. So yeah, I mean, if Marv can't hit some sort of a ceiling, like 4 catches, 65 yards and a touchdown in this spot, like it's going to be scary hours for the rest of the season for him, I think.
Yeah, Harrison's an interesting one. He's just been so like mercurial, where you've seen like the big spike weeks. You've also seen the low scoring weeks. It's sort of a continuation of what we've seen from his rookie season. But like you said, Dallas, this is the matchup you want to start all of your Cardinals. One player that I'm actually very excited about this week, it's kind of nuts. I'm excited about Bam Knight. I think Bam Knight is probably going to be somewhere in the mid RB2 level player this week. He's been really solid. There's also a little bit of a lack of clarity as to when we're going to get Trey Benson back. So coming out of the bye week, I actually think Bam Knight is going to put up a decent number against Dallas, and you'd potentially have him ready to go in week 10 as your starter as well, if provided he can keep this thing going. Dallas has been getting beat up by opposing running backs as well.
Yeah, the Benson thing is interesting. They brought Michael Carter back, but on the practice squad, they cut him Monday this week, brought him back. Bam Knight had already taken over this backfield. You look at their last game by expected fantasy points, Knight doubled up Carter. In terms of expected PPR points, he doubled them up. In carries, 14-7, and they also both ran basically the same exact route share. So yeah, really strong play this week. If you're in need of like an RB2, I'm with you. I think Bam Knight's a good play. And then yeah, the Trey Benson thing, he tore his meniscus, and midseason meniscus tear. We just really don't know what form he's going to come back in, like if he's going to be able to handle some sort of full workload. He certainly has, like if he's fully healthy, he's got like high-end RB2 upside. Benson does for the rest of the season. But I think Bam Knight for this week and probably the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about him as like a mid-range, low-end RB2.
Yeah, I think Bam Knight and also Kamani Vidal, who's absolutely a locked-in starter for us. We have him as an RB1 this week. Really no reason to talk about Kamani Vidal. But I feel like with Bam Knight and Kamani Vidal, it feels like you might get a little bit longer utility out of them than maybe some fantasy managers are expecting. Omari and Hampton, it feels like they're going to be extra safe with him. I believe LA has their bye week in week 12, so I wouldn't expect to see Hampton back until week 13. And then who knows with Trey Benson, you might end up getting maybe 5 starts out of Bam Knight. When you added him off the wire, you expected maybe he would mix in behind Michael Carter, and you might have just had like found money as like an RB3 type flex play. So very, very interesting stuff. One running back who's not on the show sheet, but is cast into probably most people's starting lineups is Tyrone Tracey. Cam Scattaboo is done for the season. I feel like every single show, I've been on a bunch of podcasts this week, and I feel like every show, it's just like, we have the moratorium for losing Cam Scattaboo, one of the players that was like bringing joy to fantasy managers, bringing joy to NFL fans every single week. And now we're going to have to do without him, not only on Sundays as NFL fans, but also in our fantasy lineups. Scattaboo was completely locked in. Tyrone Tracey last year was the second most productive rookie running back in fantasy besides Bucky Irving on the season. Had a really, really strong year. He's got a chance to be an offensive focal point for New York moving forward. I'm pretty enthusiastic about using Tyrone Tracey this week. I'm trying to make a couple trades for him in a couple of dynasty leagues as well. What's your enthusiasm level for Tracey? Do you share my hopes for him for the rest of the season?
So Scattaboo, before he got hurt, he was like RB8 by expected fantasy points, like low-end RB1 by production. I don't think Tracey's going to get to that level. I think we're going to see some Devin Singletary, but if you look at the last game, man, I mean, it was Tracey 32 snaps, Singletary 8. Like you mentioned, he was pretty productive, especially like from week 5 on last year. Kind of took him some time to ramp up, and now they have a quarterback. So it's like, yeah, I think Tracey is like a high-end RB2, probably rest of season. In our rest of season rankings, I just updated them. I think I had him at RB18, maybe RB17, and I honestly could go a little bit higher than that. He's kind of blocked by like Jaylen Warren and DeAndre Swift, like those pretty strong RB2s, but he's in that pocket rest of season. And then yeah, for this week, man, if you've been stashing him, had him on your bench, or you picked him up, he was available in like 50% of Yahoo leagues. I think you're just playing him as like a pretty strong RB2 and really good flex play if you've got some good running back depth.
Yeah, he feels like a plug and play guy, and Tracey has the ability to catch the football, give you the two-way ability. Definitely not the hammer that Cam Scattaboo is, but I think he can get there in different ways. I'd say there's potential he could get you 80% of the Cam Scattaboo scoring. I think that's a realistic number, and if I'm getting 80% of Cam Scattaboo, Scattaboo was like an RB2 or better every single week. If I'm getting 80% of that, it's a player that should help me in fantasy football. And I do think it's going to be like the threat of Devin Singletary. To me, they're going to lean into Tracey. Tracey's going to be the running back who's going to be getting the weekly touches and scoring for us. Let's pivot back over to the quarterback position. Talking about some teams coming off of bye weeks. You got the LA Rams. Matt Stafford was red hot as a touchdown passer their last game. That was a Europe game where they won easily over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now he's got a sort of another cushy matchup against New Orleans this week coming off of the bye. You got to think Matt Stafford's going to keep this thing going, put up some strong numbers. Is he a starter? Is he a top 12 quarterback for you this week, Graham?
Definitely. And I want to just give Stafford like some love, man. He was awesome before the bye. I mean, this is a guy who was always like crushed for not having a ceiling, but he's QB 10 on this season, 19.5 fantasy points per game, only 1/10 of a point behind Dak. And we're just like jamming Dak into lineups every single week. Yeah, he's hit 3 games of 25 or more fantasy points in his last 4 outings. Obviously, getting Puka back is just huge for the ceiling here. And, with all these statue pocket quarterbacks, man, we're going to rely on touchdowns, and touchdown variance can kind of, kill your lineup some week. But I mean, Stafford has thrown for multiple passing touchdowns in all but 2 games this year. The 2 games he didn't do it was against Houston. Okay, good pass defense. And then that weird 17-3 game against Baltimore. So I'm on Stafford. Rest of season is like borderline top 12. I think we have him QB 13 or QB 12 in our rest of season rankings. And then, yeah, for this week, I mean, he's like a locked in top 10 play, I think, among all quarterbacks. Saints are struggling to pressure the quarterback. Their secondary has kind of been suspect. Adams and Nakua should just go off in the spot.
Yeah, getting back Puka Nacua, and we're anticipating he's going to play this week. That's going to be a big one for Stafford. We saw the connection with Devontae Adams at the bye week, where they're using Adams like sort of like a goal line back, getting like the 3 short touchdown grabs. That offense could just be absolutely lethal. Very, very bullish on LA over the second half of the season. This is an offense that we're absolutely banking on. Graham, let's talk about it. Last week, Jordan Love was lights out, 3 touchdown passes. Hit a number of season highs in terms of statistics. One thing that's interesting to me is we saw the Green Bay pass attack take a big step forward. Tucker Kraft absolutely snatching souls at the tight end position. Christian Watson coming back. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Love, it seems like the passing game is trending up. And at the same time, Josh Jacobs, they're having to mix in a little more Emmanuel Wilson. I don't think that calf is right. Could we see a return to a little bit more balance in the second half of the year after 2025 season, or excuse me, last year's season, we saw where it was like the Josh Jacobs show every single week in the second half of the season? Could it be a return to a little bit more of a balanced approach in Green Bay? And what's your enthusiasm levels for using Jordan Love this week?
Yeah, Love is like the hyper Matthew Stafford, where he really has to have the big touchdown weeks, because he basically, like you mentioned, is just like, it just comes down to the pass volume with him. Like if they let him throw, he's going to be pretty good. They actually have been pretty balanced this year, man. Like it's just, they haven't really had a week like last week all year where they really push the pass rate. At Fantasy Points Data, we have the pass rate over expectation metric. Last week, Packers were the 5th most pass happy team. And on the year, they've really not had a week where they've gone super, super run heavy. So the balance has kind of been there. It's just, Love is stuck between 28 and 32 dropbacks. He's going to live on that like QB1 flex line, but he's playing an extremely high level, man. Like we have an epidemic of ADOT in this league, and Jordan Love is like trying to solve it himself, basically. I think Love is, this week with 4 teams on bye, he's like in that Stafford pile for sure. And then going forward, I still think, Josh Jacobs is going to have his weeks where he scores multiple touchdowns, and Love is going to be, permanently like the QB 13, unfortunately. But, I'm on Love in the Packers this week. I mean, they've just got a huge team total against the Panthers, 14-point home favorites. This screams Josh Jacobs bounce back, like a 2 touchdown game for him. But with Love playing at such a high level, he's really hard to take out of lineups right now.
Yeah, and let's talk about Christian Watson. Christian Watson certainly didn't look like a guy coming off of a torn ACL. Led Green Bay wide receivers in receiving yards. Tucker Kraft is sort of the main target there. Tucker Kraft is about tied with Romeo Doubs for the target total lead on the season. I'm sure he's going to pass Doubs in the short term. But Christian Watson, I think, is a fun flex play for me in a couple of lineups decision. I had him very highly ranked in my waiver wire column, which you can read over at fantasypoints.com. Your thoughts on Christian Watson? Is this like a smoke him if you got him situation where we're going to use Christian Watson as long as he's healthy? Do you have apprehension about the Green Bay wide receivers being too difficult to predict? Or is this a Christian Watson takes another step forward against a pretty soft Carolina defense.
So yeah, you nailed it. Tucker Kraft is just like, he's not must start, but I'm kind of throwing my hands up with these Packers receivers. Like at the end of the day, like Watson was not, like, I'm very surprised he looked that healthy coming off the ACL. I expected him back, but not to look that great. For this week specifically, Carolina has actually been pretty good against outside wide receivers. They're bottom 12 in fantasy points allowed to perimeter receivers. And then, there's a chance, man, they could just smoke the Panthers and just kind of take the air out of the ball in the second half. I think all three of these Packers receivers are kind of in the same bucket. They're just like wide receiver 3 flex plays. By schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, Panthers are actually bottom 6 this season. They've been pretty good, man. JC Horn's had a nice bounce back season. So, yeah, man, Matthew Golden, I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't think it's happening anymore. Christian Watson really hurts him.
Yeah, he really hurts him because obviously they win in kind of the same way. I think, Golden's a better route runner, but they obviously both are, deep threats. And, Golden hasn't had a game above a 20% target share all season. And, you're really just banking on, Love's efficiency and some big plays. And, with Watson coming back, that really hurts him.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I'm going to say, and Chris Wecht is not very enthusiastic about Christian Watson in our rankings over at Fantasy Points. And Chris has been fantastic all year long. His rankings are terrific. If you're a DFS player, if you're a redraft player, if you're a dynasty player, you want access to the rankings we have over at Fantasy Points. They're absolute fire. And you can get access to those using the code Theo. Code Theo gets you 15% off our already discounted packages over at fantasypoints.com. Graham's apprehensive about Christian Watson. Chris is apprehensive about Christian Watson. I'm not, though. This is my vibes-based take. Vibes-based prediction here, Graham. 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown for Christian Watson. Christian Watson is going to put up a number this week against Carolina. So let us know in the chat. Are you Team Graham? Are you reasonable, well thought out, or are you my vibes-based take where it's Christian Watson to the moon this week and absolutely smokes it? I'm excited about Jordan Love, too. I think this is a sneaky Jordan Love, Christian Watson DFS week too. I'm actually I'm very bullish on this passing game this week. I know Carolina, they've had some big weeks. Of course, they completely shut out Atlanta earlier in the year and all that kind of stuff. But Green Bay feels like a team that's heading in the right direction. Carolina, not so sure about that one. One player, though, that I think would give Carolina a major boost is Rico Dowdle. We're starting to see Dave Canales saying the right things here, really heaping praise on Dowdle and sort of saying that Chuba Hubbard is a guy that we love organizationally. We want to give him opportunities, but it seems like there's going to be a shift here. It's been pretty much a split the last 2 weeks. Could this be the week that we see 65-35 in favor of Rico Dowdle? Your enthusiasm levels for him this week?
Yeah, that's the way I'm seeing it too. Like if you look at the full quote from Dave Canales, I think on Monday, he was basically saying like we can't ignore we can't ignore that Rico has been like exceptional, better, basically saying he's been better than Chuba. And you look at the metrics, man, it's like not even close. Like Chuba, has really struggled, after contact. He's barely forced any missed tackles this season. He's just, not the same player. I think playing through this injury, Rico is just like fully deserving of this role. And we have him as a pretty strong, like back end RB2 rest of season. I think RB20, RB21 is like the right pocket. And I could see a scenario where we just keep bumping him up because they keep giving him more and he's just better than Chuba. This week, I'm kind of treating Rico as like a low end RB2, a really good flex play. We were just talking to this game. I mean, they're just huge, 13.5, 14 point underdogs. They have a 15.6 implied team total, just really, really low. Only the Saints have a lower team total this week. That being said, though, I mean, Rico has been awesome. Packers obviously have a very good run defense, but I'm expecting like, at least 14, 15 touches in this spot for Rico. And I think he's going to, kind of widen the gap over Chuba rest of season.
We've also seen Rico Dowdle be efficient as a pass catcher. So if the game does get away with from them, we've got that added out that maybe he could add 4 or 5 catches. During some of the Rico Dowdle spike weeks, he had a touchdown catch. So I would love to see Rico Dowdle really take on a more prominent role. I think his fantasy ceiling could be somewhere closer to low end RB1 if we really do get him getting back to that kind of volume. Really, really strong stuff from Dowdle. We also saw another injury. Isaiah Pacheco now is week to week. Who's your preferred Kansas City running back here? Kareem Hunt had the 2 touchdown scores against Washington on Monday night. Brashard Smith, there's a whole hive of us sort of really excited about the opportunity for more touches, for more targets out of the backfield for Smith. If you had to start a Kansas City Chief running back, are you going with the touchdown score or the mystery box?
I'm going with Hunt, and it's going to be gross, but like, I want Brashard Smith to be a thing too, but they're going to continue to use Hunt on obviously all their goal line stuff, short yardage stuff, but he's also going to get, most of the early down carries now. To me, man, I'll be honest, I think they just shift even more pass heavy. Like we've seen the Chiefs are the number 1 team in our pass rate over expectation metrics at Fantasy Points data. Mahomes and Andy Reid just posted a plus 15% pass rate this past week in week 8. It was their 5th game this year with a plus 10% or higher pass rate over expectation. For this week specifically, I think they just lean even more on Mahomes, lean even more on Rashee Rice and all their guys that are now healthy. And they're going to have to. I mean, this game with the Bills, man, like Bills-Chiefs games have just gone off like 50 or more points, like basically every single time. They're going to be pushed this week. And, Bills do have a very bad run defense, like very, very bad. So, when they get in close, I think it's going to be a lot of Hunt. We'll probably see some more design stuff for Brashard Smith. I'm going to write him up as like a low-end flex for this week, just because, they've been designing some passing targets for him, kind of get him going in that way. But, yeah, I think Hunt is going to project like a low-end RB2, like high-end flex this week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think if you're in trouble, I think either one is sort of usable. I think maybe Smith, the ceiling is there if the game flow gets there, but the problem is Kansas City is just absolutely rolling people offensively. I think it's leaning itself towards Kareem Hunt being better than expected. We saw this last year, the exact scenario. Pacheco goes down, Hunt comes in and really defied expectations. Not a XFP type guy, but a guy who just sort of gets it done. Kareem Hunt, I think the opportunities will be there on the goal line. Mahomes targeted him for a short touchdown pass this past week. I think there's a certain trust factor. And organizationally, Hunt has all the experience in the world. Smith has only been playing the running back position for a short period of time. So he's got the juice, but not necessarily the experience. I think experience wins out. If I had to pick one, it's Kareem Hunt. Let's talk about Travis Hunter real quick. Travis Hunter, talking about players coming off of bye weeks. Hunter was awesome in week 7. We saw Travis Hunter with his best game of the season, 24 PPR points, 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown, 14 targets, Graham. There's a lot of talk coming out of Jacksonville that maybe it could be a potential changing the guard at the wide receiver position with Travis Hunter leading the room for the rest of the season. Your thoughts?
I think that's the case. Brian Thomas is just not the same player as he was his rookie season. I was calling him like a Julio Jones clone, just running these like demon outside routes, just putting corners in, basically shambles. He's not had the same level of like separation on his routes. And obviously Thomas has struggled like no other player with drops this year. Basically anything away from his body, Brian Thomas's body, like he's just really, really struggling with. And I'm not sure if it's like a confidence thing. I'm not sure if it's a technique thing. I don't really know what's happened. But you throw on the Travis Hunter film the last couple of weeks, he is getting wide open, man. Like before the breakout game against the Rams, he was really, really starting to get open. And then, yeah, you mentioned it. He has the breakout game, really strong game from him against the Rams. Our average separation metrics didn't necessarily love him in that spot, but I mean, he's just continued to ramp up. Theo, I don't know if this is like a bold take, but I did bump Hunter above BTJ in the rest of season rankings. It just feels like this is kind of the momentum. Like BTJ is like, had some good volume-based games, but like we were just saying, he's not been the same player. And Hunter's just like continued to ramp up. For this week, man, like this Jags team, they get a Raiders secondary that's been like pretty bad. Like they haven't really been exposed this season, truly exposed. But for Hunter specifically, he's been running, good amount of his routes from the slot. Raiders are, bottom 15 in fantasy points allowed to slot receivers. They've been really bad to perimeter receivers, giving up the 5th most fantasy points per game. So I really like Hunter in this spot. I think you're playing BTJ as like a wide receiver 3 flex for the rest of the season. But I'm buying Hunter. I mean, this is what we see every year with rookies. Week 8, week 9, these guys start popping and starting winning leagues. And I kind of feel like that's the trajectory that we're going to get for Travis Hunter here.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. Everything about it, the routes run percentage for him. I mean, he's running a ton of routes. He's on the field the entire game. And I said this on a couple of shows this week. I agree with you. I think Travis Hunter outscores Brian Thomas Jr. over the course of the rest of the season. And I think this could end up being a big breakout for Hunter. Something like 15.5 points per game for Travis Hunter the rest of the way. I think it's still an opportunity to buy him in redraft, even to buy him in Dynasty. And I think by the time we get to the fantasy football playoffs, he is going to be a locked-in starter for people, and there's going to be no hesitation. You're just going to put him in your starting lineup and use Travis Hunter. We've also seen Liam Cohen with the manufactured looks, the design targets. I think you're going to see a lot more of those for Travis Hunter, keep things easy on Trevor Lawrence, and this offense could potentially have a really nice start to the post-bye week against Vegas, like you mentioned. A very, very interesting player there. All right, Graham, let's talk about it. My guy, Chimere DK, Chim DK, back-to-back weeks with 16-plus fantasy points scored. DK's been really, really impressive. He had 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown in week 7 against the Patriots. And then things got a lot better. Put up a massive number of targets for him. 8 targets in week 8 against the Colts. 7 catches for 93 yards. He also has had a carry in back-to-back weeks. And on the season, he has 8 carries where they're giving him manufactured rush attempts. Graham, he's playing in the slot a lot with that elite speed out of the slot, very high slot rate, but he's also getting on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. What are your thoughts on Chim DK? I'm kind of excited about using him in the flex. I know there's issues with Tennessee, but they don't have the horses here. It feels like they're going to get as much as they can handle out of their exciting rookie.
I'm with you. I think he's like trending towards basically the only Titan we can play in fantasy. This running back group has just turned into a pretty much full-blown nightmare. Like, just kind of both Spears and Pollard are eating into each other. Io Manor hasn't really popped yet. Ridley's hurt. Yeah, man, for this week, like, Chargers have been really good against outside wide receivers. Like you mentioned, DK is running more of his routes inside. I think the big thing for me is like we hadn't seen him in a full-time role just yet. He hadn't played more than 70% of the routes yet this season, but that changed last week, got up to 86%. So really, it's going to be he and Io Manor as their primary receivers in 12 personnel for the rest of the season. This is kind of the week where the top 20 receivers are really strong, and then it's just kind of like a big bucket from receiver 21 on. DK's kind of probably at the bottom of the wide receiver 3 pile, but if you're in a pinch and need him in a flex, decision, in a deeper league, he's certainly in play.
Yeah, I'm really excited about him. I had him very highly ranked in my waiver wire column. You can check that out over at Fantasy Points. Graham, last week you recommended Jauan Jennings as a starter. That didn't work out so well. It's been back-to-back weeks for Jennings with 7 targets, 4 catches. This past week, the yardage went up a little bit, 45 receiving yards, but 8.5 PPR points, not getting it done for fantasy managers. San Francisco's offense really just shut down against Houston. They only scored 15 points. Are we ready to use Jauan Jennings again this week? Are you changing up your take on him, or is your enthusiasm level for him still there?
Yeah, I just follow the usage, man, and it's been pretty good. Like, got a 22% target share last week, led the team. Week 7, got a 27% target share, easily led the team. And we'll see on Purdy. Mac Jones has played pretty well with Purdy out. It does not seem like Purdy's going to play. He's got this toe injury. It's just they're letting this heal up. But yeah, I mentioned Jennings was kind of like a wide receiver 3 last week. It was just a really tough matchup. This week I'm treating him as more of like a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. And the usage has been really, really good. It's this matchup too. Giants have been like kind of sneaky bad against wide receivers this season. They've been, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to outside wide receivers, not very good against slot receivers, bottom 12. So pretty much wherever Jennings lines up, he's going to have a pretty decent matchup. And this game has, back and forth shootout potential for sure. I mean, Jackson Dart is playing at an extremely high level, just kind of carrying this offense. Got a 48.5 team total. I know the production really hasn't been there for Jauan Jennings this year outside of one game. He had 5 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown against the Saints. That's really his only good week this year, but I'm kind of feeling it this week. I think we're going to see Jennings get back in our good graces here.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. I like the conviction. One player that, frustrating for me, the narrative shift has just been absolutely wild. The first 4 weeks of the season, we saw Quentin Johnston score 14.9 PPR points or more in 4 consecutive weeks. He outscored Ladd McConkey in all 4 of those games. Then week 5, it dropped down to 6.9 points scored. We go to the bye week. We're still like, everything's all good. We went to not the bye week. We went to week 6 where QJ missed the week, banged up, comes back in week 7 against the Colts, catches a touchdown, but only 2 catches, a season low. And then things got even worse in week 8. The Chargers were scoring at will. Oronde Gadsden is the truth. Ladd McConkey with a huge performance, but 0 PPR points out of Quentin Johnston. There's a lot of cause for concern. A lot of the QJ haters are coming out of the woodworks. I didn't hear from these people in the first month of the season. They were chilling, but they're coming out of the woodwork this week saying like, "See, I told you, QJ's nothing. You should have sold. You should have sold your QJ shares." Or is this just a man versus zone thing? Is this a game flow thing? Where's your trust level for QJ? I mean, what a change of events.
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned. And it's like we have a 3-game sample now where he's been at 12% or fewer of the targets. It's not just Oronde Gadsden being awesome. Like he's, they're using him as a receiver. Ladd McConkey has really taken off. We saw a really slow start from McConkey in the opening month, but since then, he's been at a 21, 24, 26, and then last week got a 40% target share. This is the lad that we were drafting, second round this season. Ladd is still probably not going to pay off his ADP this year just because of all the target competition, but he is clearly kind of taken back over as the wide receiver 1. And then, Gadsden is just like he's kind of hurting Keenan Allen too, man. Like it's not just Quentin Johnston. They're taking Keenan off the field in favor of Gadsden and kind of using, a little more 12 personnel. Keenan's basically only been like an 11 personnel guy this year. For this week and moving forward, I keep bumping Quentin Johnston down in the rest of season rankings, keep moving Ladd up slightly. This week, like they play the Titans, and they could just absolutely, destroy the Titans, man, and kind of take the air out of the ball in the second half. Even though they've been a very, very pass happy team this year, they're basically 10-point favorites on the road. That's huge in the NFL. I'm gonna write up QJ as a flex one more time. I bumped him down to flex category last week, and he might honestly be closer to a sit.
Yeah, I think if you're breaking ties against QJ. Again, though, the passing offense has been so good that even with the usage trending down, there is still an opportunity that QJ could give you a 20-point week. I think it could end up just being a frustrating moment, Scram, but I don't think what we've seen the last 2 weeks is indicative of the player we saw the first month of the season. I'm going to be still a little bit optimistic on him, but like you said, if you have better start options, no need to force it this week. Just start that Oronde Gadsden guy. He's good at football. The team that the Chargers beat up on last week, 37-10 over the Minnesota Vikings. We did see the return of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones scored 5 PPR points. Nobody's really talking about it, but Jordan Mason sort of became invisible, 1.6 PPR points. Are we using either of these backs in Minnesota? To further complicate matters, Xavier Scott also scored 4.4 points, caught 2 passes. Where's your enthusiasm level? Is there a single Minnesota running back you want to use this week?
No, yeah, no. I'm trying to avoid the Vikings backfield like I'm trying to avoid this Titans backfield. It's a twofold thing. Like Aaron Jones is gonna play in the passing downs. He ran 17 routes to Jordan Mason's 6 this past week, and then obviously if they're gonna split carries, like it just kind of nukes Mason. And then this week, like they're huge, huge underdogs on the road in Detroit. JJ McCarthy is now having to start, because Wentz is hurt going into Detroit. Like this is a pretty rough matchup for McCarthy to kind of shake off the rust, get back going. Detroit has been an okay run defense this year, 3.6 yards per carry allowed. So you're not going to see like a lot of explosive plays. It's going to be kind of a grinded out game for Vikings run game. I would be trying to avoid these Vikings running backs, and I'd be using pretty much any of like the top 35 receivers that we have in our projections over them.
I think that's a great way of pointing it out, sort of how to exploit the flex this week, not forcing a Minnesota running back in, favoring the wide receivers instead. Another running back who things are just not good for right now is Alvin Kamara. There were a number of people having takes that Kamara's production was going to trend up after the season-ending injury to Kendre Miller. It's been anything but that. Alvin Kamara has back-to-back weeks with 6.5 points or fewer, and 4 out of his last 6 games played, he's had single-digit PPR scoring numbers. We mentioned that we expect that LA is going to maybe woodshed New Orleans this week. Also looking like Tyler Shuck at quarterback. That's a variable that I don't even know which way it's going to go. Shuck could potentially have more rush attempts, but really the specific question is, Alvin Kamara, do we see any sort of a bump with a rookie behind center? Are you looking to use him anywhere, or are you just flat out sitting Kamara?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with Kamara. That's just been a pain train this entire year. Saints have the lowest implied team total this week, 14.8 points. Tyler Shuck is a total mystery box. I thought Rattler was playing well enough, to keep the job all year. Maybe the ownership is just like, hey, this season's over. We got to take a look and see what we got with Shuck. We kind of know what Rattler is. Whatever the case may be, it's not just like we have quarterback concerns. We also have Devin Neal concerns. Last week, Neal ran more routes than Kamara, ran 20 routes to 15 for Kamara. Didn't get a carry, but I think Devin Neal is like a really sneaky stash for back end of the year. Like there's a chance they just kind of like, let him kind of take over some of the job, maybe week 13 on, and just kind of see what they have with the rookie. Kamara is a sit this week for me, man. I'm pretty much out.
I added a ton of Devin Neal based on
Nice.
the potential for a Kamara trade, which looks like it probably is not going to happen. But I agree with you. I think they're going to see what they can get out of Neal. You also might see one of the wide receivers, probably not Olave, but Rashid Shaheed might get traded before the deadline. Next week, we might be talking about players on new teams, Graham, which would be very exciting for us to do. Let's talk about a situation that I know you are not thrilled to talk about. I know Scott Barrett gets like angry talking about this one. It's our guy, Clint Kubiak, who, if you had to pick the top 10 smartest offensive coordinators in the NFL, Kubiak's probably on the list. But the way that he's treating your boy, Kenneth Walker, Scott Barrett, one of the running backs that Scott loves as well, and certainly a player that we all have exposure to in fantasy, heading in the bye week, not good. A lot of frustration there. Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, which one, if you had to use one, would you use this week? And are they both sits, just to sort of see where the usage goes?
I think the usage is going to stick. I think they want to keep Walker fresh. This is a team that is, trying to make not just like win the division, but I mean they're very live for a wild card spot if they don't win the division. Trying to keep Walker healthy. This week, I think you have to kind of lean into the touchdowns with Charbonnet. They have a 25 team total, 3.5-point favorites on the road in Washington. I don't think we're going to see much change out of the bye. I think we're going to see a split in terms of just like, the non-red zone, short yardage carries, and they just keep going to Charbonnet. I mean, my stat, like it's basically been like 70-30 in terms of the goal line carries for Charbonnet this year. He's scored a bunch too. He's not like he's been, terrible in that role. He's a really good short yardage back. So I don't unfortunately, man, I don't really see much change. I think I'm going to keep writing these guys up as like low end RB2, but pretty decent flex plays, especially like in half PPR where, touchdowns are a little more valuable.
Yeah, I think keep them both as high-end RB3s,
Yeah.
and if you need to use them, use them. I think they like Charbonnet. They like things that he does that don't necessarily translate for fantasy, and they're gonna give Charbonnet those looks around the goal line. I made that point on School of Scott. Scott was equally angry at me saying Charbonnet's been okay around the goal line. He's not a good goal line back. I'm like, okay, Scott, guy's getting some Russian scores. But I think that this could continue to be a frustrating one for fantasy managers. If you're looking at some sort of clean usage change, I don't think we're going to see that.
Nah.
There's also a chance, Graham, that Walker is just banged up and we're never going to see him get fully healthy this year. You mentioned they want to sort of keep everything fresh and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. It's a tough one to gauge. I'd say they're both somewhere in the RB30 range in the rankings. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, probably maybe a little higher just because we got 4 teams on a bye. But yeah, if we had a full slate, they'd be in like the RB3 range. Just real quick, I mean, Charbonnet has been a very good short yardage back this year.
Thank you.
He has been very, very good. Like, I don't think he's a very good running back overall, but he has been good in short yardage situations. The thing that's frustrating is like Ken Walker in his career has been a very good goal line short yardage back too. So it's like, it's just frustrating because Walker like will rip off like a 15-yarder, an 8-yarder, a 9-yarder, and then they pull him at the goal line. Like it's just like peak tilt for fantasy. But yeah, man, this season 13 carries inside the 10 for Charbonnet, just 5 for Walker. I want to throw up. That's how I feel, honestly.
Yeah,
I love Ken Walker.
I'll give a couple stats for the Charbonnet haters out there. He does have 5 rushing touchdowns on the year. And the last time we saw Zach Charbonnet, he had 19.5 PPR points because, Graham, he scored 2 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, the Zach Charbonnet haters might still be in shambles if he falls in the end zone again this week. We'll see. Let's keep this going. Let's stay. You know what? We'll come back to it. Let's talk about Colston Loveland, the year of the rookie tight end. We've talked about countless of these guys on this show. Tyler Warren, absolute stud. Gadsden is a stud. Harold Fannin is a stud. We're seeing good things out of Mason Taylor in New York. He should be rostered in every league if you have a chance to add him through the bye week. Colston Loveland, we saw Cole Kmet out last week. Back-to-back weeks with 3 receptions for Colston Loveland. Not exactly what drafters signed up for. Loveland, the number 10 pick in the NFL draft. I think there's a lot of Bears fans who would like a little do-over there, and they would love to have a little Tyler Warren in Chicago. That being said, can Colston Loveland turn things around here? Is there any usage signs that you're seeing that are going to lead to positive results for the rookie tight end?
Yeah, I wrote up Loveland as a stream last week, and I think I was a week early. He had 76% route share, really strong last week. That was a season high for him. Targets didn't come because Rome Odunze did Rome Odunze things and just alphaed everybody. But this is the week, man. Like, the Bengals have the slowest linebacker and safety core in the league by far, and they're giving up just an absolutely massive +8 fantasy points allowed over expectation based on the schedule. This year it's like by far the most. The second worst team is the Steelers at +6. Colts are third worst at +4. I mean, it's like one of the biggest advantages I can remember for a tight end in their matchup. So yeah, if Cole Kmet sits again this week, I'm going to be writing up Loveland as a really, really good streamer.
Yeah. I mean, keep the faith kind of deal. I know that like throughout the process, we were very high on Loveland. We've seen tight end success under Ben Johnson. So yeah, I think we just have to be there. I'm going to be keeping him on a lot of benches. I hope you're right. I'd like to see some production here when it comes from Loveland, but I do know, like, as a prospect, he was a player that I was high on. Scott was high on. Brett Whitefield, very, very high on. And there's a reason that they took him 10 overall. So we'll keep an eye on that. Last player to talk about, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, it's sort of another year where Darnold is going to beat his ADP. 1,750 passing yards, 12 touchdown passes. Now Seattle is coming off of their bye week. Your thoughts on Darnold this week? The schedule is looking pretty good over the next month.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. I think Darnold is like, I don't know, top 12 is a bit of a stretch, but I have him top, I think 16, I think, 17 rest of season. And I could certainly see him popping as like a back end QB1 for the rest of the year. Obviously, Seahawks are very balanced. They're going to have some games where they're going to go very run heavy. But, Darnold already has 3 weeks this year inside the top 10 in terms of his weekly finishes. You mentioned the schedule is really good for him. This week, I think he's probably the best true streamer, especially if we get Jaden Daniels in that game. With Daniels, Commanders obviously have the ability to put up 30 points in any game. That game kind of has some sneaky shootout appeal, man, on Sunday night. So, 47 team total. Darnold has been really strong floor. He's flashed a bit of a ceiling. And obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing like one of the top 3 most talented receivers in the NFL. So really with Darnold, it's kind of like the same equation as Jordan Love and Stafford. They just need to run into some touchdowns. I think this could be a spot, man. Like for sure. Commanders have not been very, very good in the secondary. Their pass rush has been okay, but I mean, they're giving up the 4th most passing fantasy points per dropback to opposing quarterbacks. Only Dallas, Chicago, and Cincinnati have been worse this season. So kind of a sneaky good spot here too. I'm going to be streaming a little bit of Darnold in some spots where I've got, Jalen Hurts or one of my quarterbacks are hurt.
Yeah, I'm with you. Darnold, I think, is playing well, and I believe in this offense being able to take the next step. We saw some positivity. Guys like Elijah Arroyo, we want to keep an eye on him coming out of the bye. A guy like Torrey Horton, do they ramp him up a little bit over the second half of the season? And JSN on a collision course with Jamar Chase and certainly Puka Nacua in the battle for the wide receiver 1 overall. He's completely locked in as a fantasy asset. Graham, this was awesome stuff. Let everybody know what you have going on rest of the week.
Yes, sir. This week, Start Sit always comes out on Thursdays. We've got matchup points with myself, John, and Brett. We record that Wednesday afternoon, come out on Thursday. Make sure you're locked in to the Fantasy Points podcast that comes out on that feed. And then on Fridays, myself, Ryan Heath, and Jake Tribby, we walk through the main slate for DFS Friday afternoon on Halloween this week, man. We're going to be dressed up. I'm not sure what I'm going to dress up as, but we'll see. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern.
What is Ryan Heath going to dress up as?
Bro, I don't know. He's got a Josh Gordon jersey. I might encourage him to dress up as Flash. We might have to see. But yeah, that's at 7 o'clock Eastern on the YouTube channel, or you can check it out on the NFL DFS Deep Dive podcast feed that's up on Saturday afternoons, man. We're everywhere here at Fantasy Points. We have so much content. It's unbelievable.
We are a content machine. We're going to help you win your leagues. If you're looking to get somebody a very cool Christmas or Hanukkah present, consider a subscription to Fantasy Points. It's the gift that keeps on giving, Graham. Whether you want to just level up your gambling, level up your DFS, level up your dynasty, or level up your redraft, Fantasy Points going to help you get there. Make sure you're checking out School of Scott Barrett and I every single week. Check out Fantasy Football Daily, the podcast feed. There's some stuff that doesn't even make it here if you're watching on the YouTube channel. And Dynasty Life. My guest this week is Jim Coventry of RotoWire, really, really sharp guy. My guest on Fantasy Football Daily. I do a guest show every single week in addition to the show I do with Graham and the Waiver Wire show with Joe Dolan and Tom Brawley. Andrew Cooper of Fantasy Alarm joins me. Jim, Andrew, great guests. Make sure you check those out. Like Graham said, we're everywhere here at Fantasy Points. We're going to help you crush your fantasy leagues this season.